Welcome back to another episode. Your boy, The Spree, and you are on The Spree Speaks. It's always good, man, to be seen and be able to be heard. Um, Obviously, before we get off into the topic, um, each time I decide what I want to talk about or what I want to get into, um, I decide those topics based on either somebody sending those topics to me or me seeing something um, that I feel like is interesting enough to discuss. And so I was, I'm on social media a lot now here lately. I'm on social media a lot, and I look at things a lot on social media. And here I saw a post from I don't remember who it was that posted it, but there was a picture of Russell Wilson and his son at the All Star game. And then there was a caption, somebody captioned in, "That's not his son," right? And then, of course, they went back and changed it and said his stepson. And so it led me to the topic which we get in today, fatherhood, the whole story, the whole experience, the whole ins and outs of fatherhood. And, before we get too deep into it, I think it's important for anybody who is not a father, anybody um, who has not experienced fatherhood, it's important that you understand the anticipation level um, of being a father. The importance of having, if you're a man, having sons, having your name being carried on once you are gone. I think for a lot of men, myself included, that's a big deal, man. You know what I mean? To have your legacy continue to to live on when you leave. Now, that's not to say you can't have um, your legacy continue with daughters. You can, but your name changes. Daughters get married; their names become the names of their husbands. With sons, your sons have to carry that name, your legacy, and that's a big deal. I think a lot of times we don't really realize how significant and how powerful that anticipation really is. I remember back the first time where when I first became a father, a dad. When I got the news, I was a little bit shocked, scared, and happy all at the same time. But the fact that I was about to be responsible for another human being, I was about to be the father of another human being. That was a big deal. That wasn't something that I took for granted. You know what I mean? Um, that's the first part of it. The second part of it is this. Um, there are a lot of men, I believe, who want to be fathers and can't be. There are a lot of men who, whether it be a health issue or something else that prevents them from becoming fathers. And in those instances, I know that's a painful thing. When you want to be more than anything in the world, you want to be a dad, you want to be a father. And here you've tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and you're not able to do it. You know what I mean? You can't reproduce. That's tough as a man to be have to accept the fact that you can't be biologically. I mean, obviously you can adopt um, and things like that, but your biological DNA cannot produce a seed, the offspring. That's tough, man. That's tough to deal with, right? And so one other thing before we really just break these things down piece by piece. I was telling my youngest daughter, I was telling her this the other day. We were having a conversation, and she was mad about something. I was explaining to her. I said, as a dad, it's not my job to say everything you like. As a father, I'm not responsible for you liking me 24/7. I'm responsible for trying to teach you values and morals and principles, and trying to teach you how to take care of yourself when I'm gone. That's my job as a father. Um, and I told her there are a lot of children born who have never had a father, that have never known a father, never seen a father, let alone their own biological dad. And so when you have the ability to still have your father, have a relationship with your father, be able to talk to your father, see your father, that's a big deal. That's not something I think you should take lightly. I think fatherhood, for the most part, is downplayed so much, man, in our society. Motherhood is always is at the top of the list, but I think fatherhood is always shitted on, for lack of a better word. And I don't think that it gets the amount of attention it should get. Uh, I think it's a big deal because, one, without fathers, you don't have children, right? You don't have children just with moms. You got to have somebody else in the picture. And so, having said that, just because you produce a child, just because you lay down and you produce a child, that alone does not make you a father. I hope y'all with me so far. That thing, that act does not alone signify you are a father. You still have to do your job. You still have to take care of your responsibilities after the fact. Um, I've had a lot of conversations, man. This topic, first off, is one that I'm really passionate about. I'm really sensitive about. I'm really, 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 really genuine about the topic because, one, I'm a father. Two, I've been in a situation where I've had to be away from my children for some time. I've been in a situation where um, I've lost custody of a child before. I've been in a situation where um, I've had to make hard, tough parental decisions being a dad. I've had situations where me and, me and my sons have had clashes, or me and my daughters have had disagreements. I've been in these situations. And so um, I think it's vital to understand that although I take nothing away from motherhood, I take nothing away from the relationship that a mother has with her children. I don't downplay it at all. I just think that the role of a father is just as significant in their upbringing. I think if we look at now, before I continue to break that down, if we look at now, and I just into our society as a whole, there is a massive void in our communities because there is a lack of male leadership. And the reality is, I can't obviously speak for every man in every situation, but I think um, it's difficult to to know exactly how to be an effective father if you didn't have one, right? Like I think a lot of kids are without fathers because once they were born or conceived, their dads didn't know how to be fathers. They never had one. You know what I mean? They were raised without a father. They grew up without having that male role model, that male figure around to teach them certain values or certain discipline or certain moral. They didn't get that. So if I didn't get it and nobody gave it to me, how can I give it to my children? How can I pass on something that I didn't get? Right? And I think that's where a lot of kids suffer because they don't have that. They've never received that. I was fortunate enough to one, my dad's always been around. My dad, you guys hear me say this often. My dad's always been active. He's always been tangible. I've always been able to reach out, touch him, call him, see him, communicate, and and in this, and I've also had uncles who were really, really, really intricate figures in my upbringing. I had uncles that I looked up to a great deal that played positive roles in my life. So I had great male role models to teach me and show me different things. And so with my sons, I'm not gonna say it was easy, but it was like I didn't really have a choice. You know what I mean? This is what I was introduced to. This is what I was used to. So I wanted my sons to have the same thing. I wanted my kids to go through the same thing. I wanted to be active. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be tangible and hands on. And so I think that plays a huge role in how your children's future plays out because you'll have some kids who grow up in the system. You have some kids who've never known who their father was or mother for that matter, but definitely having that void of not having a father figure, and that's big. That's extremely vital in raising and upbringing. um I think, like I said, not to downplay motherhood because obviously you had a lot of single moms out there who had to try to play rather, not you can't play mom and dad, but try to play mom and dad. And there's just certain things as a woman you can't teach a son. You know what I mean? A daughter, sure, but you can't teach that to a son. Um, if we're really taking a hard look at our culture, there's a lot of things going on now in our culture that I believe is happening because there's not extensive role models. There's not extensive male figures that's in the family now that's saying, "Hey, listen, that ain't it." You know what I mean? I don't think that's a good idea. This may not be the smartest thing. You know what I mean? That's not happening. So you're having kids growing up and raising kids, raising themselves versus having a dad that's active and that's around, and that's tough. Um, I think when you have a man who accepts the fact that now I'm a father. Now I'm not only responsible for me, but I'm responsible for this life, and takes that role seriously. Really, really, really says, you know what? Okay, this is my child. This is what I'm gonna do to make sure my child has a chance, right? That makes a difference versus your attitude being, well, shit. I mean, I didn't have a chance. I grew up selling dope and doing crime and robbing and jacking, or I grew up in the streets hustling. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna show my kid the same thing I saw. That may not that I'm gonna say may not, but that's not the best thing because you may have had to hustle because you had no choice. You may have had to be in the streets because you had no choice. That child has a choice, right? And so if you're not giving that child a choice, you're not giving that child another option. Our children are products of their environment. If all they see is us hustling, selling dope, robbing, jacking, it's a pretty good chance they're probably going to want to be a part of that same world. They're probably going to want to do the same thing. They're probably going to want to, at some point, be just like us, right? And a lot of times, that's not good. You know what I mean? We'll have our kids. We'll say, well, when I grow up, I want to be just like my daddy. That may not be the best thing for you to grow up and be like your daddy. It may not be the best thing for you to grow up and follow in your father's footsteps. That may not be the best thing. But if that's all you know, or that's all you've been introduced to, what else is it? You know what I mean? Um, we can attribute, and I'm just obviously, this is how I feel about it, but we can attribute a lot of things that go on in our communities to a child being born or being raised without a dad. We can't. Um, there are a lot of things that have now become acceptable that weren't acceptable before. There are a lot of things now that um, kids are doing now that kids were not doing before. There's a lot of behavior going on now that wasn't going on before, right? And psychologically, you know what I mean? Like, for example, your children may have friends who have never had a dad. Your child probably had you, but her best friend may have never had her dad. So when your child is always talking about, yeah, I'm gonna call my dad gonna do this, or me and my dad going here, or are you showing up at events at the school, or you showing up at PTO meetings or basketball games, or whatever this case may be, her friend is seeing you there all the time. Her friend is seeing that relationship all the time. Her friend is getting an opportunity to see, damn, I wish I had that, right? I want to know how that feels. But she's not able to know how that feels because she doesn't have that. And so here now you have a a man who comes into the picture not biologically, a man her mother meets or marries or whatever the case may be, who decides, hey, you know what? I want to take on this responsibility. I accept you. These kids now are my kids. We're a family. These kids are now my kids, right? So now you're looking at a situation where you may have, like I said, this child may welcome that. This child may be excited about that. Oh my God. You mean to tell me there's somebody who's actually in the mix now that actually is gonna come to my cheerleading events, that's gonna actually come to my trials, that's gonna come to my basketball games or my soccer games, that's gonna cheer for me, that's gonna do all these things I never had before. And so now that relation, now they're trying to form a bond, a relationship, right? You follow me so far? Now here you have this relationship has been formed, this bond has been formed, and now the relationship is no more. So now what happens? What happens now to this dad and this child? What happens? Because here's the deal. Remember, this is not his biological child. So what happens in this relationship? Does this relationship stay the same? Or does now he leave the relationship and now there's no communication with the child? Now the child goes back to, well, I'm back at square one. Here I thought I was gonna be able to enjoy or understand how it feels to have a dad. Now I'm back to where I started. You know, nobody wants to be my dad. I'm never gonna have a dad. You know what I mean? So it's a psychological thing on that side as well. But I think when fatherhood is something that's so delicate, man. It's so extremely delicate because if it's something you truly, 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 truly aspire to be, right? You got some guys don't want to be dads. regardless. You got some guys, it don't matter. Man, I don't want no kids. Shit, them your kids. I don't want none of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want none of that. Or they're welcoming the fact that the mom and dad fall out where he ain't got to be in the child life. You got some cats like that. You do. But the child suffers. The child is the one who suffers in that whole mix up. But you do have some dads out there that no matter what the mom says, no matter what kind of roadblocks in the way, no matter what obstacles arise, hey man, that's my child. You ain't gonna keep me from seeing or being around my child or interacting or communicating with my child. I don't care how you feel about me as a person or as a man or however we fell out. You can't prevent me from being a father to my child. Now, when you get a person, when you get a man who is passionate like that, he's all in. You know what I mean? Like he is understanding my child needs me. My child has to have me be a part of their lives because without me, something's it's not gonna go right. Right? I'm not running away from the situation. I'm not using this argument to be a scapegoat for me to go and do what I want to do and leave all the onus and responsibility on the mom. No, this is my child. So no matter what it is, I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I remember years ago, my mom used to get mad at me all the time. She'd say, "You need to you buying them kids stuff. You need to keep the receipt." Now, what I would say, no, I'm not keeping no receipts. No, they my kids. Whether I keep the receipt or not, I still gotta buy that shit, right? And so once you get the mindset and you get the mentality, like you know what, it don't matter what go on. I have to take care of my responsibilities. I have to own up to my responsibilities. I gotta stand on business when it comes to being a father to my kids. And I think if a lot of that's not happening right now. It's so much nonsense and foolery going on to where the kids are the ones who are in the middle. The kids are the ones who are lacking, right? The visitation. Y'all back and forth beefing. You don't want him to see the child, right? That's don't make no sense. That's foolishness. That's foolishness. Fatherhood is important. Children need their fathers. They need to be around their dads. Point blank. No matter what you may feel, how you may feel about it, that's the fact. Period. Now, granted, um, we cannot make excuses for ain't shit niggas. I mean, we not gonna be able to make excuses uh for fellas who just don't care. You can't make excuses for that. I think it's hurtful, man, to see or to know cats like that. You know what I mean? It's hard, man, being friends with people who genuinely don't give a shit about their kids. That's tough, right? To have those hard conversations and be like, you do know that's your kid, right? Like you don't care at all. Like you just don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you have to have them. Those are conversations that have to happen because watch this. And look, I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying just because you don't have a father you can't grow up and be successful. That's not what I'm saying. You can. I'm not saying just because your dad walked out on you, you cannot be a great human being. You can. I'm not saying any of that. I just think it's a lot more difficult to um to be the person you need to be or want to be without that father figure, right? If you've I mean, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I've always considered myself to be blessed. I've always considered myself to be um extremely fortunate when it came to those type of things. Because as I said, my dad was always there. I was never one um, who understood really how it felt to not have a dad. I never experienced that feeling. I never knew that feeling. I was never a child who was never rooted for, who never had support, family support. Um, I was never a child my dad really didn't disappoint me as a child, right? Like I didn't really go through all of those hurdles as a kid. And so it was easy for me when I became a dad. Not raising a kid, that part wasn't easy. It was just easy for me to say, this is my kid. Like, this is my child. I got to be there for my child. I got to do what's right for my kids. That part was easy because I saw it. I witnessed it. I experienced it. I went through it. Um, did I have friends in school who didn't have their dads? Absolutely. Did I have friends who were raised in single mom homes? Hell yeah, a bunch of them, a lot, absolutely. And I could tell those households were different. The things that were going on was different. The conversations was different. The discipline level was different. There were a lot of things that my friends, some of my friends, could get away with, and I'm like, what? That I knew I would never be able to get away with because my dad wasn't playing that shit, right? Or you know what I mean? So it's just the dynamic is completely different when you don't have that voice. And that voice is that voice. I can't really explain to you how vital that voice is, other than to say it was necessary to have, right? It's almost like, if you a parent now, if you have children now and you're a dad, you understand your voice is different than their mom's voice. If you don't understand that, then there's something wrong. If you can't say, hey, you know, your mama, if you don't understand the difference, something's wrong with that picture. It's a whole different conversation when a child says, "I'm gonna call my mama," and that conversation is had, versus "I'm gonna call my dad," and that conversation is had. That's two entirely different conversations. You know what I'm saying? Sons or daughters don't matter. That's a different conversation because coming from a dad, his perspective is different. He can't give you a woman's perspective. He's not a woman. A mom can't give you, granted, like I said earlier, sure, a lot of kids have been raised in single parent households, but that don't mean that was the best thing. That just meant you didn't have a choice. That don't mean the kid came out better. No, that just means you did what you had to do because there was no other choice. Right? That ain't saying this situation was better. No, that's not at all saying that. I don't believe that anyway. No more than I believe, ice cream tastes like boo boo. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the dynamic of fatherhood is so crazy because you have so many guys, man, to who their dream is to be a dad. They pray for it. They can't wait. They like, man, and to have I want a son. I mean, a daughter's fine, but I want a son. I want a boy. You know what I'm saying? They can't wait. They have two or three girls, and they keep trying because they want to have a son. They want to have a person, a name carry a person that's gonna carry on that legacy, that name, that genetic pool, right? But here you have, on the flip side, a man who was fortunate enough to have a child and don't want nothing to do with it. You have a man who all he wants out of life is to be a father and can't. Health won't let him, genetics won't let him. I mean, whatever it is. I mean, adoption, sure, but we talking about like I produce my own, you know, offspring. You can't. And here you have a person who has done that and don't want nothing to do with it. Man. And it hits harder when those people know each other, right? Like here, you friends with somebody, you can't have kids. They got three and don't want nothing to do with them. You begging for kids. You asking God every night, please, just give me one. This fool got three kids and I ain't seen them in 5 years. And bragging to you about it. Man, fuck them kids. I don't care nothing about them kids. They all right. They with their mama. And here you is, you can't even wrap your mind around the reality of, bro, you got three kids and you don't know where they at? What? You don't know what their grades look like? You don't know if they're okay, not okay? You don't know where they live? What? It almost make you want to lose respect for them. Because in your mind, you like, how is it that you can lay down and make a child, but you don't want to see the child being born. You don't want to have nothing to do with the child's raising or upbringing. You signed over all your rights, parental rights, and you think that's for the betterment of the child. How? Unless you a stone cold alcoholic or a dope fiend, how is that possible? That don't make sense. That don't make sense. Children suffer so much, man, because of our mistakes. Our children suffer a great deal of pain and heartache because of the decisions that we make or have made. That's a fact. They ain't asked to be here. Hmm. They ain't asked to be here. That was a decision we made to bring them here. But I just think fatherhood is so overrated, not overrated, overwhelming to so much degree to that you see so much negative shit go on. So much negative shit go on. Where you have people talking about deadbeat dads. Oh, that nigga shit. That nigga don't do this and he don't do that. And that stigma starts to circle around all fathers, right? That bad element starts to become now all fathers is this way, right? If you not married to the mom or you not if the family's not together, you ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it's not it's unfair. Obviously, it's unfair, but I think that the other part of that is as much as the onus should be on the dad, I think that same onus should be on the mom. I think the mom should have some bearing as far as wanting that dad to be a part of that son or that child's life. And I just don't think that's a lot of that is happening. I think a lot of the disconnect comes when, parents disagree, and now you mad at the other parent and you take that shit out on the child versus saying, yeah, we ain't together. We don't get along, but you still need to be a daddy to your child. You know what I mean? You still need to be a father to your child. You still need to take care of your responsibilities. And, as hard as that is to accept, that's just the facts. You know what I'm saying? Don't That's the reality. You have to do what you have to do. You know what I mean? I think, and you know what? The thing, this is something that I take extremely personal. Um, a lot of times, when my kids were growing up, through elementary school, middle school, high school, I made a point. I made a conscious effort to one. I wanted to be seen. Man, I made a point to where not only did I want to be seen, But I wanted it to be known these are my kids. I didn't want nobody trying to guess and figure it out or trying to come up with no. I wanted it to be known these were my children. I remember one of my sons, Deuce. Deuce was playing football. I never forget this. Deuce was playing football at the YMCA, right? I think he probably was about, I don't remember exactly how old he was, but I went to a game and I didn't like what he was wearing. I ain't like it. I said, oh hell no, I don't like that. And so the next game, I went and bought him a whole new shit. I bought him a duffel bag, had his name stitched in it. I bought him some new clothes, armbands, headbands. I had his name stitched in his football clothes, the whole nine. And so when he was on the field, you know what I'm saying? When we walked to the field, I was right there with him. We having conversation, we talking, on the field. I'm taking pictures the whole nine, but I'm there active because I wanted everybody on that field to know that's my son. No matter how well he played, he could have sucked. It didn't matter. He didn't suck, but he could have. I wanted everybody to know that's my son. My daughter was cheerleading. I had a couple hoodies made. I had a face on the back of one. I had a picture of me and her on one. I had a name, you know what I mean, and all this type of stuff. And I walk in the gym and I'm sitting on the front row and she cheering. I didn't care who won the game, you know what I'm saying? But I wanted everybody in that gym to know this is Alex's dad. I'm Alex's dad, right? And so no matter where it was, every time I went out somewhere, I went to an event with my kids. I made sure not just them, but everybody that was around knew these are my kids. These are my kids. I'm loving on my kids. These are my kids. I'm here to support my kids. Win, lose, or draw, suck, be whether they good, not good. I don't give a shit. I'm here to support my kids. And I think a lot of times we don't really understand as fathers the impact that has not only on our children but the other children that are looking. How many times my kids have came back and said, Dad, man, all my friends keep talking about you. Man, all my friends say, man, your dad is dope. Man, your dad is cool. Man, I like your dad. You know how many times I've heard my children come back and say something like that to me? You know how that makes me feel as a dad? Makes me feel wonderful. But how do you think that makes my children feel? To know that their friends are saying, hey man, your dad is dope. Your dad is cool. And they don't even have dads. I've never seen their dads at a game. I've never seen their dads at a cheer competition. Never. Right? So how do you think that makes my children feel to say, well, shoot, your daddy probably ain't coming, but I guarantee you, mine gonna be here. I promise you, my daddy gonna be here. Probably. I ain't got to worry about him. He coming. Right? That's like one of the best. When my grandson has events or has things that he's doing or whatever it is, when I show up, I want everybody to know that's my grandson right there. Him right there, that's my grandson. That's my grandson. I'm proud to say that's my grandson. I'm not walking around saying or not acknowledging the fact that these are my kids. I'm not doing that. Who does that? That's crazy. That's the craziest shit in the world. You know what I mean? Like we don't really understand as a dad, as a father, we don't really understand the impact that we have just because we show up. We don't even know how important and how vital it is just to show up. I don't remember what it was. I missed something Alex had at school one day. And I don't know if I had to work or whatever, but her mama went with her. She was mad at me for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Dad, you don't never miss nothing. I can't believe you missed. I'm like, yo, if I didn't come, it must have been a good reason. Ain't no good reason. I mean, was mad because she was so used to me being at everything. used to seeing me at everything, right? So you got to as a dad, as a father, it's critical, man, that we understand our presence matters. Our voice matters. How we treat our children in public, that shit matters, right? It matters, man. I'm telling you. But if we're not in that role, or we're not playing that role, we're not playing that position, who suffers from that? I ain't going. Her mama on that bullshit. I ain't going. What? Her mama gonna be there. I ain't going. I don't want them problems. What? What? And it ain't got nothing to do with her mama. Whether her mama gonna be there or not, ain't got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? It's just so many situations, man, to where we've allowed simple things to prevent us from being the fathers we should be. Right? Now, watch this. Watch this. Now we're gonna spin it. We're gonna spin it because DNA alone, like I said earlier, DNA alone don't make you a father. Just because you got the same, you know, DNA, that ain't the only thing that says I'm your father or you are my father. You gotta, man, you gotta play your position, right? You got watch this. Watch this. The saddest thing in the world, I think I said this before. The saddest thing since I've ever, in the world is to have a man show up and be more of a father to your child than you have yourself. It's no way on God's green earth, no way in the world, none whatsoever, I'm going to be comfortable with a man treating my children better than I treat them. What? What? I ain't going for that. No. I'm going to respect him for sure because he's doing what he's supposed to do as a man. If he's married to their mama, he's supposed to take care of them. But to do more than me or to be more effective than me or to have a high a more valued voice than me, hell no. I ain't having that. No, absolutely not. I'm not gonna do that. No. But that happens more times than we care to admit. Yeah. That's a more frequent thing now in the world now than it has ever been before. Do you know how many guys now, or you'll be having a conversation, man, and they'll be saying, "Yeah, man, my son, man, I gotta give my son," and you like, "What? Man, you ain't got, man, I've been around, nigga, we've been friends 20 years. You ain't got no sons. Where you get a son from?" Oh man, my wife got a son, man. He 9. You know what I'm saying? So she, that's my son. He like, oh, okay, okay, cool, cool. But you actually treat this son or this child, this 9-year-old boy, like he is your biological son. He's respecting you more than he respects his own daddy. He's treating you better than he treat his own daddy. He get in trouble, he calls you before he call his own daddy. How that go? How that go? No, just because you plant a seed in somebody, that don't constitute you being this child's father alone. You still got to be this child's father for real. You still got to step up and do your part. You don't just get to just plant the seed and let somebody else bear all the responsibilities while you sit out here and twiddle your fingers. That shit don't work. It don't go like that. I don't have the numbers and the statistics in front of me. I'm not real big on. I'm not a statistics type of guy. You know what I mean? I don't really have no diverse access to what the numbers look like. But I can almost guarantee you this: if you look at the number of incarcerated African American kids between the ages of 15 to 18. And I'm guessing right now. I would probably guess that number is extremely higher in single parent households than it is in households where there's a mom and dad. I would almost be inclined, you know what I mean, when I get offline to look at those numbers and see how accurate that is. But I can almost guarantee you the number of incarcerated youth, juvenile between 15 to 18, that number is higher in single parent households. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. I guarantee that there's a number of single moms who have said, you know what, lock his ass up. I'm tired of dealing with it. I can't do nothing with him no more. He don't listen to me. He don't respect me. He's stealing all my shit. You know what I'm saying? He doing what he want to do. He coming home all hours of the night. He don't respect me. Lock him up. But I guarantee you, if there was a man in that household who had a voice, not just a man that's there coming through, sliding through every now and then, popping in, an hour here, 45 minutes here. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a man who lives there, who is always there, who is demanding you have some type of respect and teaching this child discipline and so on and so forth. That wouldn't be the case. That wouldn't be the case. But so many times we find situations to where, what I mean? I remember when I was locked up and I got transferred to Texarkana.